Once upon a time, on the edge of a small village, there lay a forest no one dared to enter. They called it the Whispering Forest, because the trees would murmur even on windless days. The trunks were so ancient that their bark looked like wrinkled parchment, and the roots jutted from the earth like gnarled gray fingers. In the village lived a young woman named Liora. She had grown up hearing stories of the forest tales of those who wandered into its depths and never returned, or of those who came back with eyes as blank as porcelain. Yet she had always felt that the forest was calling her. Sometimes, when she walked alone across the fields at dusk, she thought she heard her name carried on a voice so soft it seemed to rest upon her own breath. One misty morning, when the air was laced with silver veils, Liora knew she could no longer resist that call. With a basket over her arm and a woolen shawl around her shoulders, she stepped onto the path that led to the trees. She turned once to look back at the low roofs of the village, at the warm light glowing in her window, and then set her foot across the threshold of shadow and leaf. At that moment, something peculiar happened. The birds fell silent. The sound of her own footsteps vanished. It was as though the forest itself was holding its breath. And in that hush, where only the beating of her heart remained, Liora closed her eyes. She heard the first whisper. At first, it sounded like the faint rustle of leaves, but as she listened, it gathered into a chorus of voices, each as clear as a chime. Liora. They sang, echoing all around her. Why have you come? She opened her eyes and saw that the mist had thickened, curling around her in drifting veils. The trunks had vanished behind those shifting curtains. Only a narrow trail remained visible, lined with tiny pale lights like fireflies inviting her onward. Who was speaking? She asked softly. The voices did not answer in words, but the whispers grew more insistent, more urgent. A shiver traced the length of her spine. Still, she took a step forward, then another. With every pace, she heard new fragments of speech. Return. Forgotten. Remember. Suddenly something moved within the mist, a shape no more solid than smoke. She could make out nothing but the suggestion of a veil and two eyes that glowed a soft, unnatural green. Are you a spirit? She asked, her voice trembling but unbroken. The shape inclined its head. A voice as soft as a sigh replied, No, child, I am memory. Memory drifted ahead of her, beckoning. As Liora followed, her thoughts filled with images that did not belong to her. A woman in a blue mantle walking the same path, a child scattering petals among the roots, an old man planting a staff in the earth. Who are they? She asked. Who have listened? She did not know if she ought to feel comforted by that. But she kept her gaze on the light. After what seemed like an hour, the mist began to lift, and she found herself in a clearing where a single oak stood so tall its branches seemed to carry the sky itself. Around the base of its vast trunk lay a ring of smooth stones. Each stone was etched with a symbol she could not read. As she stepped closer, the oak began to stir. It was no ordinary rustling. The sound was a languageous sequence of murmured syllables that resonated in her chest. She sank to her knees without knowing why. The tree spoke in a voice older than the world, bearer of the hunger to know. Why have you come? She struggled for words. I heard you calling and I want to understand what lives here. A long silence followed. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Only her pulse echoed in her ears. At last, the oak replied, If you choose to know, you will never again be able to forget. A tear slipped down her cheek. She sensed that this moment would change everything. Yet the need to remain was stronger than her fear. I choose, she whispered. As she rose, the stones began to glow. The symbols shone with a soft blue fire. A low rustling rose from the earth, and figures emerged between the tangled rootstool and narrow, cloaked in darkness and leaves. Their faces were hidden, but each wore a mask shaped like the skull of some ancient creature. The watchers, they circled her in silence. In their presence, she felt no malice, only a profound weight, as though the air itself had grown dense. One watcher stepped forward and raised a long hand. In its palm rested a stone, dark as midnight. Touch this stone, and see, rumbled the voice, as deep as a distant drum. Her fingers quivered as she reached for it. The moment her skin brushed its surface, her awareness tumbled into a fathomless dark. Visions flooded her. A woman whispering a promise to the tree. A child disappearing into a wall of fog. A young man laughing before he fell silent forever. Centuries of voices, all waiting for an answer. And finally, she saw herself standing in a ring of light, while the forest held its breath. With a gasp, she returned to her body. The watchers were watching her still. What was that? She stammered. The memory of the forest, said the watcher. Now you carry a part of it within you. The watchers stepped back, and the trail appeared again, this time leading toward a stream, where the moonlight pooled like liquid silver. She knew she must follow. Slowly, she made her way to the bank. The water was shallow and clear, but its surface did not reflect her face. When she looked down, she saw countless eyes gazing back at her. Each eye was a memory, each a whisper. She knelt, letting her fingertips drift through the water. It was cold, but it stilled the quick beat of her heart, as though it were calming her thoughts. A voice spoke from beneath the surface. What secret do you seek, child? She thought of her life, the loneliness she had felt, her yearning for something larger than herself. I want to know who I truly am, she murmured. The river grew stiller. The eyes vanished. In their place rose a single image, a little girl, sitting by a stream, listening to its murmur. Beside her, a woman laid a gentle hand upon her back. Always listen, the woman said in the vision. The forest does not whisper to deceive you. It whispers to help you remember. The river faded. Liora blinked back tears. She finally understood that the whispers were not a trap. They were a callback to what she had always been. Overhead, the sky deepened into a field of stars. She felt she was nearing an ending, or perhaps a beginning. The path curled on until she reached a wide clearing where the trees parted completely. In the center stood a stone, as tall as a man, carved with glowing symbols that pulsed like a slow breath. She walked toward it. Here your path ends, said the voice of the oak, far away, yet close as her own heartbeat. She laid her hand upon the stone. The symbols blazed to life, and again she fell into that vastness, but this time it was not darkness. She felt warmth and embraced. The forest was touching her heart. You are part of us, the whispers said, as we are part of you. Remember this. The light danced around her. She felt something enter her calm she had never known. And then, slowly, everything became quiet. She opened her eyes. The stone was just a stone. The stars shimmered overhead. The watchers were gone. But inside her, the knowledge remained a soft, steady pulse. She understood the forest had never wished to consume her. It had wished to heal her. The way home was shorter, as if the trees no longer wished to delay her. When she emerged from the shadowed edge and saw the village rooftops, she turned for a final glance. The trunks were still. The leaves whispered in the cool night air. Now she understood their language. It was not a summons to fear. It was a welcome. As she walked past the first familiar houses, she knew she had been transformed. In her heart, she carried something no one could ever take away, the knowing that everything, every voice, every memory was woven together in the great tapestry of life. And when she lay awake at night, listening to the wind in the branches, she heard the whispering still. But now, she smiled, because it was no longer a call she dreaded. It was a song that said, you have listened, you have remembered, and you are never alone.